Studio Ghibli, and more specifically Hayao Miyazaki, are no strangers to controversy. In 2004, Miyazaki refused to accept his first Academy Award in person due to his ongoing protest of the invasion of Iraq. Miyazaki has a deep history with sharing his opinions and sharing them wholeheartedly, such as the time he agonized the use of AI in animation as an insult to life itself. In various documentaries and behind-the-scenes videos from inside of Studio Ghibli, Miyazaki may come off as some grumpy old man, but as I watched, the more I saw a man who was burdened by a life of artistic torture. A man who feels as though his art form has regressed into something that he can't recognize and feels is no longer even human. Miyazaki spent his life creating some of the most iconic and influential animated films to ever exist, with nobody being able to come close. Spirited Away remained the only anime film to win an Oscar for 2 decades, until Miyazaki released The Boy and the Heron, which won Best Animated Feature at the 2024 Academy Awards. Every film nominated had a strong reason for why they should win the big award, but when the winner was announced, the celebrations were cut short. The Boy and the Heron is a masterpiece. The latest entry into Ghibli's filmography showcases the life of Mahito, who moves to the countryside alongside his father after losing his mother to the war. Miyazaki's work at Ghibli is unique in many ways, the most abrasive being his deviation of the more standard 3-point plot structure. The Boy and the Heron disregards tradition to provide a story not meant to be taken as surface level. Instead, it stopped me and made me reflect and feel what Miyazaki was trying to confide in this film. What really reinforced this film's ambiguity for me was my own personal viewing experience. After I had gotten into my seat, I watched a father bring his 2 children into the theater, only to abruptly walk out about halfway through the movie. With Kung Fu Panda 4 only down the hall, I couldn't help but recognize this movie's stark contrast thematically and how much this film relies on age and a foundation of life experience to fully grasp its quality. This film is about life, death, change, grief, and wonder, but so little of which is directed for children. Miyazaki had so many reasons to make this film, but I feel as though he made it with a specific audience in mind, not the children who were upset that they couldn't watch Kung Fu Panda 4, but the ones that were introduced to their new neighbor Totoro and Princess Mononoke. The Boy and the Heron fits the shoes that it's attempting to fill. A potentially final project from the most legendary anime filmmaker of all time, a hand-drawn visual masterpiece that relies on the skill and dedication of some of the most talented artists in the entire world, but most importantly, a movie full of humanity, pain, and retrospection for a man who has experienced so much life in 83 long years. This film is undoubtedly Miyazaki's most intimate and personal film he has ever created. The Boy and the Heron is a self-proclaimed semi-autobiographical fantasy about life, death, and creation in tribute to friendship. Mahito's struggles with grief, as well as his connections to the heron and his granduncle, are all reflections of Miyazaki's personal relationships with fellow Studio Ghibli founders Isao Takahata and Toshio Suzuki. Mahito's journey unfolds as he is forced to submit to his trauma and grief, but it's not submission at all, it's acceptance. Miyazaki, through the lens of Mahito, confides his acceptance with the loss of his best friends and family into The Boy and the Heron. The themes of grief and conflict are glaring throughout the film, but for me, I wasn't drawn to any of that. The film was released in Japan under the name How Do You Live, and after watching, I struggled to figure out if Miyazaki was asking that to the audience or to himself. His stoic portrayal of self-control and how you will impact the world were my biggest takeaways from this movie. The entire film showcases Mahito making choices that are empathetic and thoughtful. He shows grace and maturity despite having every reason to be filled with hatred and wrath. He refuses to become the new ruler of the other world because he knows that his own malice disqualifies him from creating a world absolved of it. The story of The Boy and the Heron isn't a groundbreaking epic, but for what it lacks in traditional storytelling, it soars in creating a transporting experience that is so full of life and emotion that the movie truly feels alive. The Boy and the Heron felt like Miyazaki's final love letter to animation. From start to finish, it's nothing but pure eye candy, and so immersive that you forget that you're watching art in motion. Every little moment in this film is treated with just as much love and attention as the big climactic scenes. The way Mahito gets dressed and runs throughout the town is seamless and so organic. The wide shots of Mahito being introduced to the countryside provide such a beautiful sense of scale and wonder. The Boy and the Heron's box office success and recognition by the Academy is a shining beacon of hope for the industry that shows real art made by real people telling real stories still has a place in today's world. However, Studio Ghibli's triumph was met with controversy and exposed the world to the ugliest parts of the film industry. The biggest competition for the award was Spider-Man Across the Spiderverse, a movie so full of charm and character that it was almost considered a guaranteed win. I struggled for a long time on how I wanted to cover this section of the video, and how to come up with concrete reasons on why Across the Spiderverse didn't win. I love Spider-Verse, and the movie stands as a beautiful triumph for animation as a whole. But what makes The Boy and the Heron better? These types of videos are always difficult, but how do you convey such admiration and love for both movies while still having to put one over the other and provide a reason that's more substantial than I just like it more? When you have a film like Spider-Man that everyone had expected to take home the trophy, that feeling of rejection for something you love can be brutal. Many fans of Across the Spider-Verse were outraged at the self-proclaimed snub, even as far as Shamik Moore, the voice behind Miles Morales, sharing his thoughts on the award not going their way, with a one-worded tweet reading, "Robbed." Robed? Robbed? Anyways, he would later go on to pay his respects to Studio Ghibli, but the damage was already done. The main star of the series had already fanned the flames of the outrage beginning to kindle. So that leaves the question, was Spider-Man truly robbed of the award? I don't think so. As I look at Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse, I recognize its greatest characteristics are also its biggest flaws, and frankly what I believe is the reason the film didn't win. Across the Spider-Verse is a movie that was destined to be good from its inception. The film knew exactly what was required for the movie to be a guaranteed success, and they did it with flying colors. This choice resulted in one of the most beautifully animated, enjoyably fun movies I have ever seen, but I knew it was going to be that before I ever sat down to watch it. Experiencing The Boy and the Heron for the first time was otherworldly. The film captivated me from beginning to end and rekindled a childlike wonder inside of me as I watched in awe of the colors dancing around the screen. The heart and soul poured into everything from the visuals to the characters to the score is indescribably more human and genuine than Spider-Man came across to be for me. Spider-Man Across the Spider-Verse is a Wagyu steak at a Michelin star restaurant, while The Boy and the Heron is your favorite home-cooked meal made by your parents or grandparents. This is what sets apart The Boy and the Heron for me. It gave me something that I didn't even know that I wanted. It surprised me in ways I never thought possible, and did so in a way only achievable by those that have dedicated their life to creating works of art such as these. The Academy Awards and debates surrounding them will continue until their mutual demise. However, I think that it's time that the discussion around how animated films are represented at the Oscars is the true conversation to be had. No matter where you fall on the spectrum between Spider-Man and The Boy and the Heron, it's an insult that animation is forced to fight over scraps at the largely perceived kids' table of the Academy Awards. There is no reason why Spider-Man should have left the ceremony empty-handed, and same goes for The Boy and the Heron. Animation has been long disrespected within the Academy, and I truly believe it's time for it to receive its flowers and recognition. The addition of categories like Best 2D and 3D Animation, Best Animated VFX, and many more to accommodate the medium would alleviate all of the repeated frustration expected every single year. At the end of the day, I truly believe that both films should have been awarded for something, and it's a crime that we now have to pit these two great films against each other for the rest of time. But even if you believe Spider-Man should have won, in the words of Christopher Miller, the producer of both Spider-Verse movies, well, if you're gonna lose, might as well lose to the GOAT. Thank you so much for making it to the end of the video. If it's your first time here, check out these other videos on the screen. I promise they're just as good as this one. Subscribe if you enjoy watching anime and film discussions just as much as I do. And thank you so much for 7,000 subs. This has been a dream come true. I can't even express how much I'm grateful. Thank you so much again for watching. Peace.